Welcome in, everybody, to a little bit of a post-game Champions Classic reaction episode of the Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope everybody enjoyed what was two really fun games of college basketball on Tuesday night. Listen, we've been talking college basketball all summer. April, May, June, July, August, September, October. But tonight, it felt like the night that college basketball began. Champions Classic, Kentucky, Duke, Michigan State, Kansas. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. So everybody come on in, drop your comments in the chat. We're going to talk, baby. Listen, I've been telling you since what? I've been telling you since this Kentucky roster came together. I saw everybody else in the media. Is Kentucky a top 25 team? I don't even know. What did Torres tell you all along? Torres said, look at this roster, look at this team, look at the fact that they have 4 double-figure scorers from Power 5 teams. Look at the fact that, oh, by the way, they have the best defensive guard, the best defensive power forward in college basketball, in the portal, the best three-pointer. I told you this team was going to be awesome. So bottom line, Kentucky wins this game against Duke 77-72. Everybody come on in, drop your comments and your thoughts in the chat because we have a lot to discuss tonight. By the way, a couple quick announcements. First of all, producer Matt is on the scene in Atlanta. He will have a full video recap of a wild night in Atlanta. So make sure to come back to the YouTube channel tomorrow. By the way, maybe some other interesting content from the day. So everybody come on in. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast YouTube channel. We got new clips. We got new videos going up every single day. Also, do your boy a favor. Make sure that you are subscribed on the Aaron Torres Pod, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. By the way, one quick thing before we get started. Do want to thank our partners, Cauli Puffs. You've heard me talk about them, Cauli Puffs and CauliPuffs.com. So here's the bottom line. We've been working with Cauli Puffs all fall long, okay? So Cauli Puffs, remember, it's football season. It's now basketball season. You're basically on the couch 7 days a week watching sports. Tuesday night, you're watching the Champions Classic. Thursday night, NFL. Friday, Saturday, all-day college football. Sunday, NFL. Monday, NFL. And Cauli Puffs is the snack that you need. Do it for Torres, okay? So Cauli Puffs, again, healthy snack, healthy alternative. You've heard me talk about them, but here's the bottom line. Here's what you need to know about Cauli Puffs, okay? Started by a football fan just like you, a guy named Joey. It's a family-owned business, and I've talked to Joey many times. He is a season ticket holder of Los Angeles Rams, and he was sitting there one day on the couch saying, I need something healthy to eat while I'm watching football, basketball, all the sports that I love, and I need something healthy for my children when I send them off to school every day. So he created Cauli Puffs. These are the alternative to the unhealthy food in your food aisle at the grocery store. They are baked, not fried. They're made with avocado oil, no grease. Here is the best part, though. They taste absolutely freaking delicious. We got boxes in the Torres house. We can't get enough of them. And I know that you cannot get enough of them as well if you try them out. So do me a quick favor. Go to CauliPuffs.com. That's CauliPuffs.com. They're also available on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon, search your cart, do whatever you got in the cart. I don't want to know. You got whatever personal items you got in your cart. I don't even want to know. Just throw some Cauli Puffs in. You're going to enjoy them. You're going to like them. Appreciate Cauli Puffs' support of the show. Thank you to Cauli Puffs. Check them out at CauliPuffs.com. With that said, oh my goodness, it is a busy Tuesday night. There is no more time to waste, so let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, it is Champions Classic night, and boy, oh boy, what a night it was in Atlanta. For those of you who are watching later on in the evening, I hope everybody had a great trip down to Atlanta, but here's the bottom line. Final score in the game in Atlanta, second game. By the way, if you are a Michigan State or Kansas fan, I promise we will get to that later on in the show. But if you are a Kentucky fan, if you are a Duke fan, you got yourself a classic on Tuesday night. Final score 77-72. Kentucky gets the first big win of the Mark Pope era. And not only was it a big win for the Mark Pope era, Here's the truth. It was a marquee win. It proved everything that everybody has said all off season long. The Kentucky people that follow this team night in, night out, day in, day out, that follow the portal, that follow recruiting, that follow putting together roster construction, said, we got ourselves a darn good team. Everybody else in the media besides me says, oh my goodness, this team, are they a fringe top 25 team? I never bought it. It was on full display on Tuesday night. So let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, listen, I'm going to do something. People think I'm a Duke homer or I'm a Kentucky homer. I hate Duke, whatever. Listen, Duke was awesome early, and we're going to get to the Duke side of things because I actually came away very impressed with certain elements of that team and certain elements of what they are able to do. But listen, we know what happened in the previous era of Kentucky. We don't need to relitigate it. But the one thing that was clear with this coaching staff, they wanted to get older. They wanted to get experience. They wanted to get dudes that have been on the biggest stages in college basketball. Well, guess what happened? Tuesday night in Atlanta, it was so obvious the difference between these two teams. It wasn't talent. It wasn't NBA players. It was exactly what we said in the preview on Monday night. If you missed the preview, you can go back and listen. What did I say? I said, you look at Kentucky. Listen, nobody doubts how good Cooper Flagg is, how good Con Knipple is, how good Kaman Malawach is. But veteran guys late in games in college basketball, I trust them. And by the way, I'm going to say something right now so you don't come back at me later. Yes, I put out a tweet early in the second half talking about how great the Duke freshmen were. But late in the game, think about how every single time that Kentucky needed a play late in the game, down the stretch, how either team needed a play late in the game, down the stretch, it was Kentucky, and it was those veterans who came through time and time again. Just think about the end of the game. By the way, drop your comments in the comment section. If we have any super chats, we will prioritize those. We'll get to those momentarily. But to me, what this game was, especially late in the game, it was boys versus men. You could go on and on and on. I can't even remember all the plays. I'm going to try to remember them off the top of my head right now, okay? First of all, think about this. Think about the final play. Think about the final play. Mark Pope throws it deep. Not Mark Pope, but he drew up a play, throws it deep to Lamont Butler. Lamont Butler misses the foul shot. What happens? Otega Oweh grabs the rebound to get the foul to put the final points on the board to seal a 5-point win. Before that, the Lamont Butler tipped the ball off of Cooper Flagg out of bounds. That's the best defensive guard in college basketball, America. Get to know the name. If you don't know him, we've had him on this show. He's from Riverside, California. He's been a dog since he stepped on a college basketball court. Most people just don't watch San Diego State basketball, unfortunately, because this has always been who Lamont is. Big play, late in the game, late when it's crunch time. Ball goes off of Cooper Flagg, and next thing you know, of course, Kentucky gets the ball back, and Kentucky seals the win. By the way, before that, there was a big steal by Otega Oweh. Give Otega Oweh credit. He's a veteran. He's a guy that transparently, I'll be honest, he was one of the guys that when I talked about this Kentucky transfer portal class, this was not one of the guys that I thought was one of their best signees, but made several plays late, had that steal late when it mattered most. Goodness gracious, what a play. And then, oh, by the way, earlier, remember, Lamont Butler, prior to the previous play where I take back, I'm reacting in real time, so forgive me, but I'm pretty sure the last Cooper Flagg play, I don't know if it was Lamont Butler, but the play before it, when he tipped the ball off of Cooper Flagg, they went to the review panel, they overturned the call. That was Lamont Butler. And so you go on and on down the list. Think about all the big plays, the Andrew Carr and one, the pass that led to a layup late in the game. I can name 10 plays late. Kentucky made every single one late in the game, and it resulted in the victory that they got. And so to me, what this game is about is veteran resilience, older players who have been on this stage before that made plays when it mattered. And we talked about this in the preview. Listen, anytime I say anything good about, Torres is a Kentucky homer. No. I call it straight down the middle. I call it as it is. And I said, I think the veterans are going to make plays late, but it comes back to what I've said since April, since May, when this roster came together. I never bought this notion. By the way, let's clip this off. We'll put it on social tomorrow, because at the end of the day, I never bought this notion. Oh my goodness, Kentucky, they're a fringe top 25 team. I saw people in the media, people that are respected, saying, is this a top 25 team coming into the season? I was like, are you guys out of your minds? Are you out of your freaking minds? Go back and look at this roster that was put together. By the way, I remember sending a tweet from an airport in Mexico. I was on vacation when Jackson Robinson pulled out of the draft and announced he was going to Kentucky. I said, look at this roster. You got 4 guys who averaged double figures last year in the Power 5. Kirk Risa, Otega Owe, Jackson Robinson, and who's the 4th one? I can't even remember. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Andrew Carr was the 4th one. You have 4 players who average double figures in the Power 5. You have Kobe Brea, the best statistical three-point shooter last year. You have Amari Williams, best defensive player. You got Lamont Butler, best defensive guard. The idea that this was a fringe top 25 team was the dumbest narrative going, and so Kentucky gets the win. And here's the crazy part. I don't think Kentucky played anywhere close to their best game that they could possibly play. That's the great part. That's where you got to feel good if you're a Kentucky fan. Because think about this. Think about Kentucky after this game, and let's really do a deep dive on how this team played. Struggled early. How about this? They finished 10 of 25 shooting from 3. That's really good, but they started 5 of 5. So let's remember, let's discuss, let's talk about it, let's think about it. They started 5 of 5. They finished 10 of 25. I'm not great at math, but that means they were 5 of their final 20 from 3. So the thing that they do best, they didn't even do that well for the final, 32 minutes of the game. And they still find a way to get the win. And to me, what this is about is a couple things. Mark Pope was always the right guy. And I know what everybody's going to say. Torres, you didn't like the hire. No. I didn't like the process to get the hire. But go back and find the tweets. I said the moment that the hire got made, I said, give him till the press conference. You're going to love him. But what I love about Mark Pope, and what I've always loved about Mark Pope, he put together a roster where the pieces fit, where everybody plays together, where everybody is kind of rowing in the same direction. And you could see that on Tuesday night against Duke. And so when I look at this roster, listen, I don't know what ultimately is going to be this season, but I've said it since the first preseason game, and everybody wants to criticize. Oh, they're playing. Who are they playing? Kentucky Wesleyan. Oh, you Torres, you can't make a judgment based off Kentucky Wesleyan. Why not? Why not? If you watch the Kentucky Wesleyan game, if you watch Minnesota State, if you watch Bucknell, if you watched Wright State, the season opener, you could see that this team was so much better than people were giving them credit for. 3-point shooting, spacing, ball movement, size, athleticism. By the way, I think it's a total positive. Brandon Garrison off the bench, not even a guy you were expecting to contribute in a big way, was one of your best players. So when I look at this game, what I see, especially from the Kentucky perspective, is a team and a program and a group that the sum is greater than the parts, but more importantly, the parts fit, and it was the veterans late in the game that made all the plays. As I said, by the way, if I tripped up on who had what out of bounds, I'm sorry, I'm reacting in real time. But Cooper Flagg, forced turnover out of bounds. Lamont Butler tips it off of Cooper Flagg. It gets overturned. Deep pass. Lamont Butler catches it, makes the free throw. Otega Owe gets the rebound off of the missed free throw to seal the win. Otega Owe has another steal. Andrew Carr and 1. Let's just talk it out. Every single big play late in the game goes to Kentucky. And so Kentucky gets the win. And goodness gracious, do you got to feel good if you're a Wildcat. Listen, there's another day, there's another time to really figure out. But I'm telling you, man, this team, and I've said it from the day the top 25 came out. I said, remember, they were the 23rd team, and I believe in the AP top 25, and they were picked to finish, 8th or 9th in the SEC? And I said, if there are 8 teams better at the SEC, if there are 22 teams better in college basketball, this is the best season in the history of college basketball. I never believed that you could criticize whatever, but listen, this is why this YouTube channel has grown. This is why the podcast has grown, because I keep it real. I keep it honest. Kentucky, they've always been better than people realize, and they deserve credit. By the way, while we're here, you want to do your boy Torres a quick favor? You want to support the show? Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt. I'm the original OG Hope and Pope. You want to support the show? Go to AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. Get your Hope and Pope shirts. We had these shirts out the day that Pope got hired, the day that he had that first press conference in April. Go to AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. Get your Hope and Pope shirts. Really quickly, I do want to talk about the Duke perspective. The chat is humming. I got to get to some of these comments and some of these questions. Let me say this. I know we got a lot of Kentucky fans in the chat. I know we literally have thousands of you watching at this particular moment, okay? But at the end of the day, listen, I'm going to say this. I know it's easy. Oh, it's Duke. Duke stinks. They're whatever. No. That's what we're going to do. We keep it 100% on this show. We keep it real on this show. I actually came away impressed by Duke. And I will say this. If that is their team on November 12th, and if that is the worst that they are going to look over the course of the season, let me go ahead and give them credit. They were better than I thought. They were more resilient than I thought. Now, they didn't make the plays down the stretch. Kentucky's 22, 23, 24-year-old grown men did. But we got to give credit where it's due, because I actually came away impressed by that Duke team. And one thing about Duke, I'll say this. I said in the preview, if you watch the preview, what was it? We got 15,000 people watch the preview, thousands more listen on podcasts, whatever. But what I said, is the moment going to be too big for the Duke freshman? I said, look, Cooper Flagg has played for that Team USA select team. You know, he played with Anthony Davis and LeBron James and all those guys in the Summer Olympic stuff. He was on the Team USA select team that scrimmaged the Olympic team, okay? But I bring it up because I remember saying on Monday, I said, what about Kaman Malawach? You know, he played in the Olympics, but he was a reserve. Is he ready for this stage? Is he ready for the moment? Is he ready for this? Is he ready for that? And then, of course, also Con Knipple. I said, listen, great player, but it's one thing to do it against Army, and it's one thing to do it against Maine, and it's another thing to do it against Kentucky on the biggest stage in college basketball. And so I only bring it up to very simply say this, is that I want to give Duke credit. And I don't care if it doesn't make me cool to give credit to Duke. That team is really impressive. Those freshmen are really good. I actually like the way that John Shire has constructed this team. And I'm here to tell you, if you don't think that Duke team, if that is the worst that we see, they're only going to get better as time goes on. Let's give Duke some credit, because they have themselves a darn good basketball team right now. In terms of that game, listen, think about that game. Duke's three best players, all freshmen, including a 17-year-old player in Cooper Flagg. Listen, we all knew how good Cooper Flagg is, but as I said in the preview, I think this was kind of his national coming out party. And I think what we saw from Cooper Flagg is the idea that his best attribute isn't scoring, okay? And I said this the other day. I said, look, I think, I think when we think of these five-star can't-miss freshmen and, you think of Zion, you think of John Wall, you think of guys that can take over games scoring wise. By the way, I was at John Wall's first big game against UConn at Madison Square Garden. Okay. John Wall took over that game offensively, but I only bring it up to very simply say this, is that what makes Cooper Flagg different, he can get you buckets, but he really does a little bit of everything. And he's not that typical freshman that his entire persona as a basketball player is to get you 32 a night. But he gets you 26. And I think, again, this was on full display of how good he can be. Now, he had the turnovers late, but 26 points, 12 boards, 2 assists, 2 blocks. Listen, he was all over the court. I came away very impressed. And I can tell you this, I had Kentucky fans in my text messages and my DMs and my tweets telling me, Torres, this kid, he's as good as advertised. Wow, that is a really, really, really good basketball player, okay? Beyond that, I'll say this, the other 2 freshmen were phenomenal. Kaman Malawach was awesome, controlled the paint, dealt with all sorts of cramps and all this and all that, but he finished that game with 10 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. I thought he was fantastic for a true freshman who people don't know his backstory. He's only been playing basketball about 6-7 years, something like that. Came to the United States, playing really well, as I said, was a backup in the Olympics. And then the Con Knipple kid. Listen, if you listen to anybody that follows college basketball, if you listen to anybody that has basically, if you follow anybody who really kind of has a follows kind of the high school ranks, this, that, the other thing, is that they will tell you, people that have been to Duke practices have said, listen, Cooper Flagg's the number one pick in the draft, but this Con Knipple kid is the real deal, as good as advertised, better than advertised, probably an NBA draft prospect, top 10, top 15 prospect in his own right. He finished that game with 14 points, and most of them coming in the first half. So I was impressed by Duke's freshmen. This was their first big stage. Listen, it wasn't Lamont Butler's first rodeo. It wasn't Otega Oweh's first rodeo. It wasn't Andrew Carr's first rodeo. It was for Kaman Malawach. It was for Con Knipple. It was for Cooper Flagg, obviously. And so to play as well as they did, it's kind of crazy. Duke put up 72 points. Let's do some quick math here. 50 of those 72 came from the three freshmen. And what I like is I like the pieces that Shire's put around him. Caleb Foster, freshman a year ago. He's obviously a sophomore now. Point guard, 4 points, 4 assists. Did miss a couple wide open threes that kind of ended up being costly. But like him at the point guard spot, like the Tyrese Proctor, who I thought played really well as a veteran guy on this team, and like the pieces around him. And so I just bring it up to say very simply that the bottom line is like, wow, that team, that was their third college basketball game. And unlike, listen, say what you want, but Kansas played at Arkansas, Tennessee played Indiana. A lot of these teams played high-profile scrimmages and charity exhibitions. This was Duke's first big game. So they played really well. Push comes to shove. I just don't think they had enough poise late, but that doesn't mean that as the season goes on and as this team gets more confidence, I think Duke is going to be just fine. By the way, the cool thing about college basketball, and I love college football, but this is just so different than college basketball. Duke's playing everybody in the preseason, okay? So they will play at Arizona next Friday. They'll play Kansas in Vegas the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I will actually be at that game. And then also on top of that, they will play Arizona. I said at Arizona. They'll play Kansas. They'll play a couple other big games, including Auburn in the ACC SEC Challenge. So Duke, listen, I know it's cool to trash Duke. I know it's cool to, Duke sucks. No. Listen, they looked really good. They're going to get better. They're going to get experience. And if you don't think that is a team that is good enough to make moves, I'm sorry. Think again. All right, so what I'm going to do, take a quick break. When I come back, I do want to get to some of your questions. Then I'll get to the second game of the Champions Classic. I'll be honest, not the most entertaining game in the first game, Kansas versus Michigan State. We're going to get to that in just one moment. Take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get to your questions. Drop your best questions in the comments. We'll get to them. Then we'll talk Kansas, Michigan State. Appreciate your support. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what. Do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Maura Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions. All right, everybody. Hi, back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Let's see if we can get to a couple questions, a couple comments. I do want to react to the second game, but first of all, let's get to a couple. First of all, this is from Rotor Bots. Don't think this is a bot because it's a great question. He says Kentucky only played at about 50%. Listen, I tend to agree with that. Listen, think about Kentucky. Kentucky, as I said a minute ago, they started 5 of 5 from 3, finished 10 of 25, which means that they were 5 of their final 20 from 3. That's 25%, not great at math. Jackson Robinson, who I believe will be their best player when push comes to shove, finishes with 1 point in this game, and they find a way to win. To me, it is all about veterans. It is all about the older guys stepping up. Credit to this team. Because listen, I don't think Kentucky played its best game. I give Kentucky a ton of credit because I really don't. By the way, Jay Farrell says the same thing. Crazy thing is Kentucky didn't play great. Still learning how to be cohesive. Can't imagine how good Big Blue will be as the season gets going. Pope made a great adjustment at the half. Great signs. So listen, let me say this. I agree with that. And listen, one thing, you've all listened to me before. You wouldn't be here on a Tuesday night at midnight if you had never listened to the show. But one thing about Pope, I got to give credit. I'm not an X's and O's guy. I don't claim to be. But whatever he did at halftime, he had all the answers. But I also think what it comes down to is big-time players making big-time plays in big games, and that's exactly what Kentucky did. That's exactly what Kentucky did in this game, and it came down to the vets. It came down to Lamont Butler, tipped the ball off a Cooper flag. It came down to pressure in the corner. Defense forces a turnover on Cooper flag. The steal by Otega Owe. The and one by Andrew Carr. I could go on, but man, oh man, was it impressive. Todd Bowling, heart and courage beats talent every time. Great stuff. Let's see here. Tech Man Dave says, these reporters talk about anybody who wins. Tech Dave, my brother, all I'll tell you, go find literally any show that I did in April and May. There was actually a show that I did in May where I said something to the effect of why is Kentucky ranked so low in the top 25s in the preseason? So go back and look. I keep receipts, whatever. Let's keep it going. Let's see here. Duke has a really talented roster and they are a great team. They should have a wonderful year. Jordan Owens, I agree with you, man. Listen, I can't come away sitting there saying that, oh my goodness, Duke sucked. No. Duke was in control early. They listen, you know what it really was? They didn't make plays late. The freshmen got overwhelmed in the moment and the vets didn't step up. You have guys that have played college basketball. They're supposed to be on this roster for that moment and they didn't step up. Mason Gillis played in a Final Four last year at Purdue. I'm not blaming him, but Caleb Foster, as I said, a couple big missed threes that kind of cost him. Let's see who else. Tyrese Proctor. I think he had 10 points at the half, 2 in the second half. So I bring it up because, the freshmen kind of made mistakes late, but some of it was on those vets that are supposed to be on this roster for moments like that. They did not come through. Really quickly, let's keep it going. Let's take a look here. Last I checked, let's see. Last I checked, Carr got his and one over Malawak, but I thought he was a world stopper. Malawak played well. Duke did have, this is a good point. Duke did have 2 key injuries, Kaman Malawak and Sion James. Totally agree, Ernest. Not taking it away. Worth noting, Lamont Butler cramped up late. Listen, I'm not going to discredit Duke. If people came here for Torres to bash Duke and say they're the worst program that ever existed, not going to do it. Duke's going to be a really good team. And by the way, ACC, it's a 3-4 team league. I think Duke, Carolina are clear 1-2. Wake Forest is really good. Just beat Michigan. Louisville should be pretty good, even though they lost to Tennessee. There's a lot of wins for Duke to get right in the ACC. But as I said, the good news on Duke, Arizona next week, then Kansas, then Auburn at home. We're going to see a lot more Duke before it's all said and done. Let's take a look here really quick. Ryan says, stop cop kaboom, baby. We just flipped his knipple. Listen, I know what you mean, but whatever. Let's see here. Jackson Robinson played a terrible game. We still won. That's the bottom line. I think Jackson Robinson, when push came to shove, Jackson Robinson did not play his best basketball, and you still got the win. So I don't know how you can't be excited as a Kentucky fan. Steve Smith says UK has coaches and vets. There is no doubt about that. Let's see here. A couple more and then we get to it. Let's see here. Really quick. Flag was absolutely incredible. He was, man. Listen, Cooper Flag's a baller, dude. 26 points in that game. Made a couple mistakes late, but I'm not going to sit there and criticize him and, he wasn't. No. He was awesome in that game. 26 points. And I've said it all along. He's not a guy that's just going to get you 32 and do nothing else. He's a great rebounder. He's a great playmaker, block shots, steals. I heard the comp. I actually love this comp. Andrei Kirilenko, remember him back in the day? He was kind of AK-47. If you remember, he was a guy that had steals, blocks, assists, made plays. He was kind of like the original point forward. That's kind of who I think Cooper Flagg is. Like, don't compare him to Larry Bird. Don't compare him to Kevin Durant. He just does a little bit of everything. He is his own guy. Really quickly, and we'll get to some more questions. Drop your questions in the comments section. Just very quickly, do want to go ahead and hit on the second game of the day, which is actually the first game of the day, which I'm going to be honest was kind of a little bit of a tough watch. I'm talking about Kansas and Michigan State, okay? So Kansas comes in off that big win over North Carolina. Michigan State hasn't really played anybody. We're trying to figure out how good these two teams are. We know Kansas has the signature win. How good is Michigan State? Well, Kansas gets the 77-69 win. Kansas, much like Kentucky, I don't think played anywhere close to their best basketball, and they still find a way to get the victory. Now, what's crazy about Kansas, about this game. Let me start by saying this. This was a tough watch early, okay? So Kentucky hits 5 of 5 in their first three-point attempts in their game. Michigan State and Kansas, not so much. Hunter Dickinson basically has 8 straight points. This was kind of a crazy stat. Kansas made 3 of its first 5 field goal attempts, then went 1 for 18 from the field. They shot 2 for 10 from 3. And here's the crazy part. Nobody, by the way, outside of Hunter Dickinson scored more than 4 points in the first half, and they still led by 6 at the half. Second half, it was much better basketball. But my biggest takeaway in this game, it's actually very similar to my takeaway with Kentucky. Kansas gets the win, and I don't think they played anywhere close to their best basketball. And part of this is we saw some version of their best basketball when they put up 92 points against North Carolina the other day. But you look at this game, Hunter Dickinson, 28 points, 12 boards, 1 block. Nobody else really played that well. And when you look at this Kansas team, the one thing we're going to constantly talk about it, they just simply didn't have enough guys last year. You go back, they scored 46 points in the season finale. They lost by 40 to Houston on the final day of the regular season. People forget, they lost by 20 to Cincinnati in the Big 12 tournament. Cincinnati was not good last year. They lose to Gonzaga in the second round. And Bill Self said, we got to go out and get guys. And he said, we started looking ahead to next season a month ago. This was the day the season ended. And so I only bring it up because they were so aggressive in the portal. Some of their guys have played well early. Nobody really outside Hunter Dickinson played that great. Zeke Mayo, who transferred in from South Dakota State, he was a top 10 transfer, in my opinion, in the portal cycle. He had 21 points against North Carolina the other night, came in averaging 20. He finished with 6 points in this game, does finish with 7 assists, though. AJ Storr. I thought AJ Storr was the best player in the portal. Averaged 17 a game last year at Wisconsin. He finished this game with 6 points. He was in foul trouble. DeJuan Harris played well down the stretch. Rylan Griffin, who played at Alabama last year, played pretty well. But I just bring it up because this was a team that added all these guys, and it was basically Hunter Dickinson who did all the dirty work. And so if you're a Kansas fan, I don't know how you can't feel good about this performance. It wasn't the prettiest thing that you've ever seen, but the counter to that is basically you had one player play well. This after the Carolina game where everybody played well, you put up 92 points on Carolina, and you don't really get any great performances from anybody. You struggle shooting the ball, 5 of 17 from 3, and you find a way to get a win over Michigan State. And so with Kansas, listen, back to the drawing board, back to whatever. Credit to Kansas. They listen, did what they had to do. If I had to grade Kansas, like if I graded everybody tonight, I think Kentucky probably was frankly, like a B plus. I think there's another level for them to go to. I think Duke was a B plus. I think Kansas was like a B. This was far from the best performance that you're going to get out of Kansas. And guess what? It doesn't matter because you're 3-0. You have a win over Carolina. You have a win over Michigan State. Kansas should be your rightful number one team in the country. And like I said, I think there's another level for them to go. The other guy who really stands out, watch them, Flory Badunga, the true freshman, just a monster down low, physical, tough, etc. He finishes with 6 points. Kansas, a little bit of a soft spot in the schedule, 2 games before, as I said, they play Duke in Vegas on the 26th. I will be at that game. We'll probably do a post-game show from Vegas, so make sure to check it out. Michigan State, listen, I don't know what else there is to say. I thought they really battled in the second half. We talked about it on the preview show on Tuesday. They just don't have enough. And this Tom Izzo thing, listen, I'm not here to pick apart Tom Izzo and he's the worst guy that's ever coached basketball. Doesn't it kind of feel like it's run its course, though? Like, doesn't it kind of feel like it's run its course a little bit? I look at Michigan State, and I said this, I said this on the preview show yesterday. Michigan State, since COVID shut down the 2020 season, 1 Sweet 16 appearance. That's it. No Elite Eights, no Final Fours. They finished 0 times in the top 3 in the Big Ten. And you like if you just watch those 4 teams, and by the way, if you're Michigan State, you can't say, well, it's this, it's the portal, it's whatever. Guess what? Kentucky didn't have a single player on their roster in April. April 1, they had 0 players on their roster. April 8th or whenever, the previous coach left. And so you look at Michigan State, I don't really know what they do well. If you're looking for positives, there were a few. Jace Richardson, who's Jason Richardson's son, finished that game with 8 points off the bench. I actually thought he was maybe their best player in stretches, had a couple big plays, a couple assists, etc. Jackson Kohler played really well. The big guy, 12 points off the bench as well, 10 rebounds, 6'9" forward who I thought had probably the best game out of everybody else. But here's the crazy part. Jaden Akins, supposed to be your star, 4th-year guy, veteran player, 1 of 8 from the field. Jeremiah Fears is the younger guy, Jeremy Fears finishes this game, and I know he's coming off a very serious incident. 9.6 assists. He was pretty good, but you watched Michigan State. I just don't know what they have relative to the other 3 teams that I saw. Like, I've watched, pretty much all the big games at this point. And I look at Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State's in the same ballpark as Kansas, even though they kept it close. I don't think they're in the same ballpark as UConn, as Arkansas maybe, but I don't think they're in the same stratosphere as Auburn, as Houston, as Kentucky, as Duke, as Carolina. I just don't know what Michigan State is right now. Michigan State, there's just not a lot to say. I mean, just look at the stats. 35% three-point shooting, 3 of 24 from 3. Listen, I know some of that should go to the Kansas defense, give them a little bit of credit, but who is Michigan State? They're playing like 1992 basketball. We're going to rebound you, and we're going to out-tough you, and we're going to this, and we're going to that, and it's just like, I don't know what else there is to say. It was ugly. They don't shoot the ball well, don't love the offense. They played really hard. They worked hard to get back in. I just don't really know what else they have. All right, let's get to a couple quick questions and we'll get out of here. Busy night. We've already been live for 40 minutes. I think I've given you enough for 40 minutes. Let's see here. Any other questions? That's a good point on Cooper Flagg. He said, I think Cooper Flagg was tired at the end because of how much he played. I think that's part of it. Cooper Flagg just did not have a lot left in the tank. He had those 2 turnovers late in the game. Really quickly, let's see here. Somebody's criticizing my Kentucky take or my Michigan State take. Michigan State lost to the number 1 team in the country, so they should be ranked number 2. Well, if UNC played them closer than Michigan State did, then UNC should actually be ranking them number 2. Listen, Michigan State, you just watch those 4 teams. Michigan State just didn't even look the same. They don't even have the same caliber of player. Let me ask you this about Michigan State. If you were doing a pickup game where you could draft players off those 4 rosters, how many players would you have to draft before you got to a Michigan State player? You think about Duke, Cooper Flagg, Kaman Malawach, Hunter Dickinson at Kansas, AJ Storr at Kansas, Zeke Mayo at Kansas, Kentucky with Lamont Butler, Kentucky with Andrew Carr. It's like Michigan State there just wasn't there. Like it just didn't do much for me. So we'll see what happens with Michigan State. Obviously, Michigan State, as always, has the brutal schedule. They do go to play in a couple weeks here in Maui. Again, they'll face some good teams in Maui. They'll probably play Carolina in Maui, potentially UConn down the road, whatever. Let's see here. I'll tell you what. Kansas is good. No excuse. All right, I'll tell you what. Chat is humming. I do think, though, that it is time for me to get out of here. I could go all night. I don't really know what else there is to say, though, about the night. So, first of all, I appreciate everybody tuning in here on what's today? Tuesday night. It's after midnight, and you guys are the best, man. Thank you so much to everybody who joined the show. By the way, for the Kentucky fans, you want to support the show, get your Hope and Pope t-shirts, Hope and Pope. You can get it at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. That's AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, what are you doing? Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can do that on YouTube, obviously, so make sure to do that. We crossed 46,000 subscribers. I think we can easily get to 50,000 before the new year, but cannot do it without your support. So if you enjoyed today's show, this is what I need you to do. Subscribe, tell a friend. I would appreciate it if you did it. Here's another thing you can do. You want to do your boy Torres a quick favor? I'll tell you what you can do. You can go to the podcast page, download a couple podcasts, get us up those Apple iTunes charts, and also make sure to subscribe to the podcast as well. And if you want to rate and review the show, that would be great as well. Here you go. Here's the podcast. There you go. By the way, one last thing before I go. And by the way, Rotor Boat says, great show, Aaron. First time listening. Thank you for your support. Yes, sir. So great show. So here's the bottom line. This is what I need. Make sure you're subscribed. As I said, Wednesday night, we're going to have a special. Producer Matt is on the scene in Atlanta. He's interviewing Kentucky fans. He's on the streets. He's at the bars. We are going to do a Kentucky fan reaction show. I could not make it to Atlanta because of some travel stuff. I wish I could have been there, but I just bring it up because producer Matt is there. So make sure that you tune back into the channel. He's going to have some really good stuff from on the scene, from everything that happened in Atlanta throughout the day. So I'll tell you what, I could chat all night. It's only week 1 of the college basketball season. So I'll tell you what, we'll come back. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcasts, please make sure that you are subscribed. Also, make sure to rate and review the show. Go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. As I said, I put the podcast feed in the chat. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast as well. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. Leave a 5-star rating. Leave a 5-star review. And I'll tell you what, I do think it is time for me to get out of here. Appreciate everybody's support. I'll be back probably with a live show on Thursday. We'll look ahead to the college football weekend. We'll react to more college hoops. Maybe react to the college football playoff poll. We haven't even done that in a while. But for now, it is time for me to get out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You F-head, unblock me, bro. Appreciate everybody's support. We'll be back. New episode of the Aaron Torres pod here coming up. Also, by the way, make sure you get your Hope and Pope t-shirts. Appreciate everybody's support. We have sold out of these like 2 or 3 times over the course of the summer. And guess what? We will do it again soon. Thank you all.